That's not what the fans want to see. That's literally what the fans don't want to see.
So this is teaching for women. So if you haven't got this on your feed yet, I'm just going to let you know Jesus is not his name. And Yeshua warned you they would change his name and you would receive Jesus in John 5:42 and 43. Because you don't have the love of God in you, he says. I know you don't have the love of God in you. I came in my Father's name, Yeshua, or Joshua in English, Zechariah 3, Revelations 5. He had the same name as Joshua, son of Nun in the Old Testament. If you look it up, Joshua is Yahushua, which is Jehovah's salvation, or Yeshua is Yah salvation, short version. And the Son came in the Father's name. Jesus is Jesus Horsh Krishna, what Rome created, Constantine after 3 Greek gods, and Yeshua warned you they would change his name. This is prophecy. Jeremiah 23, in the latter days you'll consider it perfectly well. It speaks of a second Exodus so much greater that they won't speak of the first Exodus when Jehovah brought them out of Egypt into the wilderness. And then it tells you about the Jeremiah 23 pastors, the wolves in sheep's clothing that scatter his flock, lie to his people, and teach burden of the Lord, that his commandments are burdensome. 1 John 5, verse 2 and 3, for this is how we love the children of God, when we love God and keep his commandments. For this is the love of God, to keep his commandments, and they're not grievous or not burdensome. Because the Jeremiah 23 pastors, the wolves in sheep's clothing, that were before ordained to this combination, the ungodly men who crept into the churches unaware, turned the grace of God into lasciviousness, undeserved favor, in Jude 1:4. Because the grace of God in Titus 2, the Greek word charis, G5485, is especially divine influence upon the heart and the reflection in your life. It is Jehovah's conviction, his divine influence on your heart. In Titus 2, it has appeared to all men for their salvation, because it's been literally given to every single man, every single woman on this planet, so that they might be saved, a free gift. His divine influence upon their heart, teaching them to turn from their ungodliness, their sin, and their lusts of this world, so they can live soberly and righteously, which his righteousness is his son's 2 commandments in Matthew 22, where all the law and prophets hang on his 2 commandments, what the prophets prophesied that he would give us, which was the record that Jehovah gave of his son in 1 John 5, verse 10. And if you don't believe Jehovah's record of his son, you make Jehovah a liar. Jehovah gave record of his son in Deuteronomy 18, 15 through 19, what Moses wrote, what Yeshua told you to go look and see in John 5, when he tells you they will change his name and you're going to receive the one who comes in his own name. Search the scriptures, for in them you'll find your eternal salvation. This is verse 37 through 47 of John 5. If you don't believe Moses' writings, the last 2 verses of that chapter, how will you believe my words, he says. He tells you to go look and see what Moses wrote. He tells you this again in Luke 16, the story of the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man begged Lazarus to go and warn his brothers because he was burning in hell. And Abraham told them they have Moses and the prophets. But Christians deny the prophets. They say the Old Testament's old. They deny the prophets. They don't know what the prophets wrote of the Messiah, what he would come and do. And he says if they don't believe Moses and the prophets, they won't believe the one who rose from the dead. He was talking about himself. Again, pointing you to Moses. He tells you again in Luke 24, he tells the disciples, "You fools and slow of heart to not believe what the prophets wrote of him." And then he proceeds to tell them what Moses and all the prophets prophesied of him. Deuteronomy 18 tells you that Jehovah would rise Yeshua up, and the people were to hearken unto them. That means listen and obey, according to all that was desired at Horeb in the day of the assembly, which is Deuteronomy chapter 5. And the people had well spoken which they had spoken. Jehovah would rise him up, Yeshua, put his words in that prophet's mouth, send him in my name, Jehovah's name, Yeshua, Jehovah's salvation, and give us commands. And whoever doesn't listen to that prophet and what he commands in Matthew 22, he will require of us, of you. And when Yeshua says his first and great commandments, out of the law, love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, he quoted Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5 verbatim, and it means to keep the 10 commandments in your heart. Teach them to your children. Verse 25 of Deuteronomy chapter 6 is, if you do the commandments, it will be your righteousness, the righteousness of God. Leviticus 19:15 through 18. To love your neighbor as thyself is to rebuke your neighbor when they break the commandments of God, to do righteous judgment, not be respecters of persons. James calls this the royal law in James chapter 2, verse 8 and 9. Fulfill the royal law according to Scripture, according to Leviticus 19, you do well. But if you're respecters of persons, you don't rebuke your neighbor, you're respecters of persons, you commit sin and are convinced of the transgressors of the law. Because Ezekiel 3, if you don't rebuke your neighbor when they sin, Jehovah requires their blood at your hands. You become a murderer, because they're going to go where the fire isn't. They're going to go where the worm doesn't die and the fire isn't quenched. This is why he said in Matthew 5, I didn't come to destroy the law of the prophets, but to fulfill what the prophets wrote he would do. Isaiah the prophet in Isaiah 42:21 said the Lord was well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He would magnify the law and make it honorable. He magnified those 2 laws in the Old Testament. That's why Revelations 22:14 says, blessed are they who do his commandments, that they have right to the tree of life and are able to enter into the gates of the kingdom. Because that's how you receive the spirit of truth, so you can worship in spirit and in truth. John 14, Acts 5:32, you have to love him and keep his commandments for him to abide with you, for him to pray to the Father to send you that second comforter. But the world cannot receive, neither knows or seeks any longer, because 1 John 2, verse 3 and 4, this is how we know him, when we keep his commandments. And him who says he knows him and keeps not his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in them. The spirit of truth is not in them. Jeremiah 23. They dream and tell everyone in their neighbor, so their fathers forget Jehovah's name for the name Baal, Jesus. Revelations 14. The 144,000, his servants, Jacob. They have the Father's name written on their foreheads. But if you read on, the children of disobedience that go after the lust of this world, the prince of this world in Ephesians 2, right? Those that accept the man of perdition in their hearts in 2 Thessalonians 2, because we are the temple, the man of perdition, Jesus sits in their temple, right? Who they say is God, they worship over God. They have his name written on their foreheads, the mark of the beast, which is his name, Jesus. Revelations 13, a number of a man, 666. Chi, ze, stigma, Christ pierced on cross, your crucifix, it's pronounced Jesus. That's your Jesus. Keep the 10 Commandments and eat clean. Keep his Sabbath day, dawn